attendees in little windows?
No,
We'll see anyone who signs on when he
no,
goes with.
you would have to make them a panelist, but you to see them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
No, we'll see them in the side panel where it says attendees, but it's like a board meeting. They won't show up here, but they can ask questions.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
And the people on
I'm gonna
YouTube,
get
we won't
going.
know that.
Okay, go for it, Curtis.
Okay. Oh, there's Lisa. Good.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Okay, awesome.
You're good to go, Steve.
Okay. Okay. Welcome everybody to the first forum on the school board's budget for the next fiscal year. I'm Steve Rosenberg. I'm a Moortown rep. I'll be kind of moderating the meeting. Here's what we're going to do. Lisa Essler, our Chief of Finance and Operations, is going to give a presentation on the budget. And then we'll open it up for questions from attendees. And we're going to try having people ask their questions in the chat bar, so we all have a chance to see them clearly, and then the appropriate person will answer them. So if we could first go around the panelists and just all introduce ourselves. So Lang, you want to start? You're in my top window.
I'm Langford Davidson, Facein rep, 2 children in the Facein school, and I'm glad to hear to field any questions.
Emily Dolliff, Duxbury rep, and I do have 1 student at Harwood.
I'm Ashley Woods. I am the Warren rep and the current board chair, and my last student left Harwood 2 years ago.
I'm Cindy Senning. I'm the vice chair, Duxbury rep, and I have 5 grandchildren in the system.
Corey Hackett, Waterbury rep. I have 1 graduate from last year and 2 others that are still in the Harwood system.
Pam, you want? Yeah.
That's me. I'm Pam Eaton. I'm a Waterbury rep, and I have 1 student in the Brookside school.
Dr. Mike.
Mike Licklater, I'm the superintendent of schools.
And Lisa.
My name is Lisa Assler. I'm the CFO for the school district.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, thanks to everybody for coming out. Bobby, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Bobby Rude. I went to the wrong link, and I am the Waitsfield rep, a Waitsfield rep.
Very good. Okay, I think Lisa has a presentation she wants to give us on an overview of the budget.
One second, I'm just changing.
While she does that, I'll do a little bit of an introduction. And I just want to thank all of our community members who have joined and who have interest in our schools and our budget. And as I've been talking to community members as well as our faculty, what I have shared is that our budget is a reflection of our priorities, both our priorities as a school district, as a school board, but as a community in the education of our children. So we want to present to you that information tonight. At the same time, we want to acknowledge that our state in general is in a challenging situation regarding school funding, how budgets are funded, and how that's impacting communities, especially communities like ours, that have had a heavier, have received some heavier ramifications from changes made 2 years ago in Act 127, which adjusted student weighting and school funding. So we have worked very hard to be fiscally prudent in our budget and what we're recommending to the board and what the board has asked us to do. And we also do appreciate all of the hard work of our families, our children, and especially our teachers who show up every day and do a wonderful job educating our next generation. So Lisa's going to go through the budget, and we are happy, along with the board members here, to take questions at the end of the presentation. And I'm sorry, Steve, I was paying attention to the proposal coming up. Have you mentioned anything up to the residents who are on Zoom about questions and how we would like to handle that? Because there may be questions that people think of during the presentation.
Yeah, we're going to try having people type all their questions in the chat bar, which I think everybody knows how to access. At the bottom of the screen, it's the little thought bubble with 3 dots in it. And then we'll take your questions, and different panelists will handle them.
And I'll also state that this people can join by Zoom. Currently, there was a question. We have 15 attendees by Zoom, but people also can join by YouTube. And we do not see the number of attendees who are watching via YouTube. But we understand that there, as there usually are with board meetings, there'll be a number of people who watch it live and also the recordings. But if there's anyone on YouTube who has questions, it's necessary to log in through Zoom, through the link that the board has shared, and to ask your questions, as Steve just stated, through Zoom and the meeting chat. And you will see at the bottom of the screen a button with chat. If you pull that up and type in your message, as some people have done already, then you will be able to get the questions to Steve.
Yeah,
Lisa.
good.
Confirming you can see my presentation.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
We can see it.
Perfect. Good evening. So this evening, tonight's presentation, I'm going to explain fiscal year 27's proposed budget, show why the costs we control versus costs we don't control, have an explanation and discussion on school inflation versus CPI, and then also share estimated tax implications. Oops, why is it not going? There we go. Our mission is to provide quality education programs for the children in Harwood Unified Union School District in a safe and nurturing environment. Through collaboration among the school board, our administrators, and staff, we ensure equitable access to learning opportunities needed for students to develop their potential and to gain the knowledge, skills, and attributes necessary to be productive citizens. Our vision statement: our district provides a rigorous, innovative, and student-centered education experience in a welcoming and inclusive environment while ensuring equity, effectiveness, and efficiency. We will partner with our community to achieve our vision for excellence. Our budget goals do align with our district goals. The budget goals that were given from the board this year were 4 primary goals: was to limit budget growth and remain below the excess spending threshold while managing rising mandated costs. Continue to offer academically rigorous programming for all learners, and to provide inclusive, relevant, and engaging educational resources while still supporting recruitment, development, and retention of our educators and our staff. It came down to 2 budget guidelines on how we were able to achieve the budget. The board wanted us to focus on a level service, and a level service means maintains current programs, staffing, and services. It can adjust for enrollment changes and operational realities. It also prioritizes compliance with state and federal mandates, which we'll go over quite a bit later on. The board also stressed that they did not want to exceed the excess spending threshold. The excess spending threshold comes from the state each year. It is defined as spending above 118% of the statewide average per pupil spending, and that's adjusted for inflation. HUUSD's current proposal for our per pupil cost is $16,228.78, which is below the forecasted fiscal year 27's excess spending threshold of $16,470. HUUSD's largest investment is in our human resources, our staff and our professional staff. Almost 72% of our costs to run the district are personnel costs. Of those personnel costs, quite a bit of it is for healthcare. Healthcare attributes almost 58% of the $10.9 million in health benefits. It totals $6.3 million. That $6.3 million is approximately 12% of the entire district's budget. I just wanted to give you a snapshot of what our proposed budget is and also the revenue that we're bringing in for the district that's forecasted for fiscal year 27. Our salaries are projected to be $26.4 million. Benefits, $10.8 million. Operating expenses, $14.6 million for a total budget of $51,884,847. That represents a 5.44% increase year over year. And you'll see I also provided information for fiscal year 25's budget, fiscal year 25's actuals, and fiscal year 26 current budget. The revenues that we are anticipating actually is a slight increase over last year, but we're expecting to ask for our educational spend of $42.7 million, which is only a 3.75% increase over our educational spend, which the state funds for our school district over last year's number. The major cost drivers for the increase that we were seeing, the initial increase, we are looking at if we were to have a complete level service budget with over 7.4%. The major cost drivers of those was wages tied to multi-year collective bargaining agreements, health insurance premiums, which at a cost was 7.4. There was an increase of 7.4 projected for fiscal year 27. In the current year, the healthcare costs rose almost 12%, and the prior year was 16%. So they've been up hefty double digits over the last several years. Our dental insurance actually has been stable over the last couple of years, but that's projected to increase 12% in fiscal year 27. Contract services, which includes special education, transportation, and out-of-district services, and the growing need for mental health services for students have also been a major cost driver. What we're looking at with the 5.44% increase, to meet that 5.44% increase, we are having to reduce over $1 million in our expenses. It's actually $1,036,000 in our expenses. Those spending decreases we're looking at are $240,000 in district-wide savings that do not impact any classroom operations, $224,588 through the creation of preschool hubs, a reduction in a vacant administrative position. We are having reductions in technology support and hardware. We're also having using our salary vacancy factor. We're also hoping to reduce $50,000 in food service subsidy. We subsidize our food service program in the tune of $300,000 each year, and we're reducing that down to $250,000 next year. And we're also looking at reducing $30,000 in stipends. Overall, to achieve the $51.8 million budget, which is only a 5.44% increase year over year, that brings our cost per pupil again at $16,228.78, which is an increase over last year of 4.8%. I just wanted to share a comparison over the last 5 years of what our budget has been, our increases in how we were compared to inflation, CPI. And CPI, why CPI does not reflect school district inflation? While CPI measures the average consumer prices, our budget is driven by fixed and mandated costs we don't control, such as health insurance, special education services, transportation, utilities, negotiated contracts that have all increased at rates well above CPI. These costs make up the majority of our budget, and we have limited or no discretion over them. Some of the cost CPI breakdown, the cost driver breakdown beyond CPI, again, is health insurance. Healthcare inflationary routinely exceeds CPI. As I mentioned earlier, we've seen double digits for the last 5 years. Special education, unfunded mandates, costs and fluctuate based on student needs and not enrollments. Wages, collective bargaining agreements reflect labor market realities and not CPI alone, comparing with the surrounding school districts. Operations and maintenance, expenses related to aging infrastructure. Many of our buildings are old, and we have quite a long list of deferred maintenance. We have over $81 million in deferred maintenance. Utilities have risen faster than CPI and are not reflective of the typical consumer spending patterns or inflation trends. I just wanted to share, this is a nationwide graph sharing CPI versus healthcare versus special education costs dating back to 2022. Again, this is a nationwide, but our district is experiencing the same pressures and in some years even more acutely. Some of the unfunded legislative and federal mandates that I mentioned earlier: school safety, access controls and emergency planning, universal pre-K and universal meals, special education compliance and MTSS, facility testing and remediation, PCB, radon, lead, water, literacy mandates, data systems, reporting and planning requirements. These mandates significantly increase the costs while limiting the local budget flexibility. I've included the next 2 slides of a long list of acts and unfunded or underfunded mandates set by the legislature or additional federal requirements. Common level of appraisal, which is also often referred to as CLA. This year, the statewide adjustment for the common level of appraisal is 70.33 versus last year's 72.36. So I've listed both with the statewide adjustment and what each of the towns' common level of appraisal is projected to be. These are the numbers that recently just came out, and how that impacts then the local taxes. Now, I do want to remind everyone, the yield is not set. The yield is not final until the end of the spring semester and is set by the legislature. The yield will most likely change, but based on what we know now and the snapshot that we have in front of us, these would be based on the statewide adjustment town CLAs, what each town's estimated homestead tax rate would be. You'll see the towns are looking at an increase, and what I did is I valued it at every $100,000. So you would take that amount of money and then double it. So if your home is worth 200, 250, 300, 350, you would take that. I do want to remind everybody that on average, there's 66% of Vermont taxpayers pay based on the value of their home and their income, and therefore are paying less than the estimated estimates provided above. Again, these are not set. These are very preliminary and things could change. So this is just a snapshot in time. Budget numbers to know. The budget, what we're forecasting for our proposed budget for HUUSD is $51,844,847, which is a 5.44% increase over the fiscal year 26. Our educational spend is $42,601,368. It's a 3.43% increase over the current year. Our long-term weighted average, which is often referred to as LTW ADM, is slightly down over last year's. That is compared to our enrollments. Remember, LTW ADM, long-term weighted average, refers to weights that are given to certain categories of students. Our LTWs is 2,625.05 this year, projected for fiscal year 27. And again, our cost per pupil is $16,228.78, below the excess spending threshold. This budget reflects carefully balancing of education quality, fiscal responsibility, and the compliance with the state and federal mandates. I appreciate the community's engagement, and we welcome any questions or feedback. I've also put our website. All of my presentations from all the board meetings are located on our website. If you go to our website, go to the middle banner where it says budget and a $sign. And if you click on that, all our presentations and information surrounding budget is listed and displayed on that site. Okay, Mike.
Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Thanks very much. So as I said, if you want to ask a question, we ask that you open the chat bar at the bottom of the screen, type your question in there, and some people have already taken advantage of that, and I'll start going through some questions. So Rob Perry got ahead of the game and asked a bunch of questions. So I'll I won't paraphrase, I'll just select from a couple of the questions and throw it out to the panelists. So one question says, how much will be saved by closing Fayston School, and why is that not included in this budget? If enrollment has declined, as it has, why does HUUSD have the same number of schools? Who would like to take that?
I'll give it a shot. So the reality of the situation coming from the Building and Visioning Committee is that we need seats for children. So our enrollment has decreased, but we still require the classes that we have. And so after a lot of extensive work through an outside engineering firm and the Buildings and Visioning Committee, it was established that we would not save any significant amount of money by closing any of the schools.
And I would just add that the articles of agreement that were passed when the school district was unified in 2017 requires that if a school building is closed, that those residents be offered the ability to go to the school closest to them. So in the example of, with Rob Ask, if the Fayston School were to be closed, the majority of those families live closest to the Waitsfield School. So we do not have capacity in all the classrooms to handle that unless we're looking at, in some cases, 40 students per class. And that is just not a realistic option at this point in time.
Yeah, I would add that it costs money to close schools. There's a lot of upfront costs, and the state is not helping us with that, and we don't have a big budget for it. Bobby, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add, basically state what Steve said, that, closing schools sounds great, but we haven't demonstrated, as Langford said, that there's a tremendous savings. And part of that is there are additional expenses. There may be transportation expenses as things change, and there are also building construction expenses. On the up note, I did ask at a forum yesterday, whether the state would consider that if they are suggesting that we consolidate buildings, would there be help for construction? And I guess that is on the table. However, it doesn't exist now.
Okay, Rob has some other questions. Why don't I come back to some more if I have time, since other people have questions. Beth Gravel has, I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment. It says, while it's true that our current teacher contract increases exceed CPI, our wages lag behind inflation for many years. To my understanding, our current contract is backfilling that gap. Lisa or Mike, is that correct?
I'm reading the question now.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat the question?
Yeah.
You went
Yeah.
in and out.
While it's true that our current teacher contract increases exceed CPI, our wages lag behind inflation for many years. To my understanding, our current contract is backfilling that gap.
I think that's in response to one of Rob Perry's other questions, Steve. I think that was a
okay.
citizen response to that question.
Okay. So here's a format question. TG asks, is chat the only way to ask questions? If so, is there a plan to present in a forum that does not require chat, or is the only public forum the day prior to town meeting vote? So I would say tonight's format is an experiment, and participants are welcome to tell us if they like it or dislike it, and we'll keep that in mind for our next public forum, which is in 2 weeks and a day on Thursday, the 19th. Okay. Steve Martin has several questions. Let me start with one. Previously, the HUUSD cost per pupil was among the highest in the state. Has this changed much in the last 2 years?
I can take that one. When you look at the long-term weighted average daily membership, which is, and this is a point that Steve actually has pointed out in board meetings, we are 23rd in the state. So we're in, that's about 25% when you look at 118 districts or 52 SUs, SDs. If you look at just a cost per pupil, Steve, so if you take a look at the average daily membership, how many students we actually have sitting in seats, and divide that into our costs, our education fund costs, we are actually in the bottom 25%. So on the weighted basis, yes, we're top 25%. If you look at just per student, we are not.
Okay. Steve also asks, I believe we're still receiving a quote discount in our tax rate. So we're still not paying according to our real spending. How many more years of discount?
Beyond fiscal year 27, we have one more year.
And the discount is what? It's decreasing, right?
It's decreasing in beyond fiscal year 28, it will be 0. We have a statewide adjustment every year. It started at 10, then it went to 7. It decreases 20% every year.
I think it's important too to point out that the reason for that is because when the state passed Act 127, districts like HUUSD, who do not have as many students who are who are economically disadvantaged or English language learners or some of the other categories with those weights, that we were disproportionately impacted. So when I said that our cost per student is in the lower portion of the state, we took a big change. There was a greater burden on our budget and a greater burden on our taxpayers. One of the slides Lisa likes to point out is that the tax money raised, all the property tax money raised and sent to Montpelier does not come back. Only about 83% of the taxpayer money from property taxes raised in our district comes back to our district. The rest is distributed to other areas of the state. So So that discount was put in place because those changes took effect in 1 year and had a heavy impact on our school district and our operations and what our taxpayers in previous years had asked us to provide for students.
Okay. Steve has another question. I'll come back if we have time. TG is asking, last year the explanation for an extra principal was it was baked in the cost and contract. A year later, are there still co-principals as excess? For perspective, we have an extra middle school causing administrative growth for principals. Hard to understand that as a mandated requirement.
I'm not fully understanding the question, but we do have a couple of co-principals, and they are in buildings that are larger buildings. So, for example, state regulations require that for buildings with 10 full-time teachers, we have one full-time principal. Principals work very hard. They respond to many of the mandates, supervision requirements. So if you have a building, for example, that's 6 times the size of that, you need more than one principal. We have 600 students at Harwood. We have 2 administrators. So I'm not quite sure. I'm not understanding it was baked in the cost and contract, but what we have are appropriate to manage and run our schools at this point in time.
And TG, if you want to add on to that question, you're welcome to.
And also, I'm happy to take any people reach out to me independently. I'm always happy to answer those questions and happy to share information.
Okay, I'm going to circle back to Rob Perry. He asks, does HUUSD not negotiate the contracts? Why do you say HUUSD doesn't control these negotiations? Doesn't HUUSD enter into these contracts? That means they're within the control of HUUSD. Maybe that was a question about one of Lisa's slides. I'm not sure. Okay. So, Rob, if you want to add on to that question, please do. TG.
I see that. I can jump in. It's okay. Harwood Middle School, 2 principals as well. No, they do not have principals. So I'm sorry, 7 through 12. Harwood Union Middle School and High School has 600 students, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade through 12th grade. There's a principal and assistant principal for 600 students. No other administrators in the building.
Okay. Okay. Now I'll go back to Rob Perry, who clarified. He said, Lisa said that these costs, the negotiations, are out of HUUSD control. Lisa, I don't think you said that.
Yeah, I'm not sure for what he's referring to. I mean, we have the costs are tied to multi-year collective bargaining agreements that, they're set for multi-years. They can't be changed within that multi-years unless we go back to the bargaining table. So they're tied up in multi-year agreements.
But of course, we do negotiate them.
Correct.
And I would also say, too, if you take a look at our other factors, so every state calculates labor statistics, and one of the labor statistics calculated in states is the Vermont's average weekly wage. So since 2019, the average weekly wage has grown about 32% across the entire state. That covers private sector employees, full-time, part-time wage and salary workers, most industries like healthcare, construction, manufacturing, hospitality, finance. So they are mandated costs in that the board has entered into a contract that it has negotiated according to the terms of state labor law. When you look at the overall costs of our budget compared to the state average weekly wage in all sectors, there's been a pretty large increase across the whole state as well.
I wonder if Rob is referring to the insurance negotiation that we don't negotiate. I think his question came in right about when Lisa was talking about the insurance.
Good point. So the
Rob
healthcare
says
insurance
yes.
the healthcare insurance is not negotiated by the school board. There is a state law that requires that Vermont public school employees have a pooled source that's governed by a state board. And that is not negotiated by the individual school boards or the individual teachers association. That's done at the state level, of which our board has no authority and no members to be on that board to contribute. I think it's a 6-member board, 6 or 10-member board. But we do not have a representative. So all schools are required to pay into that system in the state, and we are issued essentially a bill saying this is what the cost will be next year.
Okay.
Lisa, anything you want to add to that piece in healthcare?
No.
Okay. TG has a question. Last year contract for offsite support because you could not be in the existing facilities. Are you terminating that lease or still paying the lease cost? I'm not sure what offsite support means.
Do they mean the office?
Are they referring to the central office? If they're referring to the central
Yes.
office, that lease is ending and we are relocating to Harwood Unified Union School District this June. So our lease ends at the end of this June, and we are saving $50,000 a year in the budget by moving to Harwood High School.
And moving
Yeah.
in, Harwood, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that question, TG. And that's a good point. And the board has heard me talk about this for 4 years. We are very happy to be moving out and into an existing school facility and space that's available. So in my 35-year career, it's only been since I've been here that I've been in a building that doesn't have students. So we're all very happy. In fact, Lisa and I were talking about that this afternoon.
I mean, I would like to add that
Yeah.
it seems like kind of the typical process any district will have to go through for any sort of consolidation or reconfiguration. Namely, there's upfront costs. I think moving the central office, were we told 300 or 400,000, and eventually we'll save money from that. But there are upfront costs. Same thing if we close a school or create mega districts or whatever. Okay, here's a long comment from Steve Martin. Everyone's facing healthcare and inflationary pressures, including the state adding and or increasing other taxes. Seniors receive SSI increases of just CPI. How do you expect taxpayers to continue to fund this? I believe that school spending requested is increasing at a rate 63% higher than our seniors on Social Security income is rising. The statewide education system is broken. No substantive changes in 2 years. Why should citizens even consider approving these escalations when repeated budget rejections 2 years ago at least got the legislature interested, but not producing solutions? Any takers?
I can say that we too we're all waiting right now to see what's gonna break and change in this situation. So I mean, we're steering the school through another year. The year is gonna happen regardless of when the state gets their act together to address some of these issues that are well beyond our control. So, you know, I hear you, but we're all feeling it, and we're trying to keep the schools as the best we can with this constraints.
I would add that Steve is pointing out real problems with our system of funding education. And we've seen the legislature kind of seems to be in a dogfight about this. They passed a bill to create really large districts under the promise of saving hundreds of millions of dollars. The task force that was appointed to lay out these maps said that they didn't believe the savings would happen and instead endorsed voluntary consolidation of districts. So, I mean, we're just getting tremendous mixed messages, but everybody agrees that education rates are rising at a kind of unsustainable pace.
Exactly.
And I think one of the hardest challenges that we face as a board is trying to balance what we know that community members want, what we want as ourselves as taxpayers, while also trying to navigate through what I think everybody knows is a very broken system. Everybody is trying to do their best to understand where some of these costs come from. There's a lot of costs that are frustrating because we wish that we could control them, and we just can't. It goes back to very large issues within the state's education system. And we have done our best, I think, as a board to try and make reductions everywhere that we can. And there's just so little left to pick off the bones, as we say in many of our meetings. It's very frustrating that there's only so much that we can really control. At the end of the day, I think I calculated it's 27% of our budget that we really have immediate control over. And that's very frustrating for everybody.
A couple more comments. TJ says, keep in mind.
I think Cindy wants to say something.
Sure. Cindy, go for it.
Can I try to respond a little?
Yeah, please.
I think that we raised a couple of things that we talk about that are sort of out of our control. And one of the things that I think as a board that we've talked about doing is trying to participate as best we can in the legislative process. There are a couple of things. The actual process of education funding that we do in the state seems to be broken. We think that there's a lot of issues like that will come out of the legislative level. But we as school board members can contribute to what legislators know and think about that and how that can and can't work. The whole issue of bringing school districts together, this whole issue of districting that's come up that says, oh, well, we'll save all this money. Well, first off, we have not seen one penny of what exactly would be those savings just to begin with. And from our understanding of what we realized would happen if we were consolidated into several large districts in the state is just for instance, for all of you to know, we would be having to look at doing a common teacher's salary probably across the whole state, or at least across 5 or 10 districts. And you're not going to get any lowering of teacher salaries on that. The teachers' unions and the teachers understandably aren't going to agree to going to a lower teacher salary so that they all can have the same low salary. That'll be higher teacher salaries. That's just one small example. A second one that is very big in this whole issue of consolidating districts is that we would be having to do a lot, very much, school construction stuff. We'd be moving kids to different schools that might not have space for them right now, that would need to have construction to increase them. The state has no money budgeted for assisting small districts or large districts, whichever the case may be. So again, one of the things that we're going to try and do as a school district, as a school board, is meet regularly and in a common way with our legislators so they can be carrying the message from us, which we can get from you guys, to the work that they do in the legislature for maybe changing some of these things. We're planning to have the senators who represent our whole district coming to meet with us. What is it, the 18th? I think the school board meeting of the 18th. Listen in and hear what the legislators have to say. We can't speak for them, but they're going to come to speak to us and fill us in on what's going on, because it's a combination of what we can do within the constraints of our budget and what the legislature is doing to fix some of these things. We can line out. We already have several times. What are some of the things that that we don't really have control over, or what aren't working? A variety of things like that, and how we can address those. And we can't change them. We can't vote at the legislature, but we can begin to work with them and work with you guys, so we know what it is important for us to be bringing to them. But a school funding formula has to be developed, and that is going to have to be developed probably at a state level. We're going to change. It's not, we shouldn't all be paying all of our property taxes to cover schools all across this state. There are other ways of taxation and management of costs, paying costs, I don't know, that need to be considered, that we need to be working with people. So that's all I'm saying is that we hope that you all as our community members understand that it's not just that we're saying, well, we can't do anything about it because it's not anything we can do anything about. We're really spending a lot of time and trying to work with our legislators and trying to work with the state on how we can begin to fix the funding issues that are apparent in our state for public education. Thanks.
Thanks. So a bunch of questions have piled up, and I'm going to circle back. Let's see. Okay, Rob Perry had a question I didn't get to before. Said the presentation on the district website has a quote long-term slide. It's a statement that demographic declines indicate that a school could be closed without construction. Why is that not considered? So is it the case we could close a school without construction at another school? I don't think that's right.
Currently, no. To Rob's point, I can't tell what the future will hold 5 to 10 years down the road, but as of this year, it would require some level of construction, and there's some board members here who are on the Visioning and Building Use Committee who can answer that question. And Rob had another really good question about sale of buildings, and according to the Articles of Agreement, if the board were to vote to close a school, the sale of that building would first have to be offered to the town for $1. So essentially, it would revert back to the town if they chose to take it back. If they didn't choose to take it back for $1, then that would be it would be that board's option to sell it at that point, I would suppose.
TG has a comment. I agree with Cindy. Help shape success at the legislative level. And I agree too. And the thing about Vermont is you can talk to your legislators. They're available. So I think the board is realizing that we actually have to do work at the state level with our representatives and senators, that they have to kind of feel our pain.
We have representatives coming to our one to our meeting on the 11th, and then one to our meeting on the 18th, and then our senators are all coming on the 18th. So we're going to hear from them about 73 in earnest. I mean, not that it feels like there might not be as much to report as we would like, but for progress. But we're going to hear from them, and I agree. And we've been talking about advocacy for months. Bobby and Cindy took a class on advocacy and how we can best wield that at the state. We know that's our job. We do. We're trying to get through the budget season so we can think about something else.
Lisa, did you have a comment?
I think Rob was referring to my presentation number 4, which a slide has long-range plans for cost containment, a framework for that. And that was where this is going to be, as Langford had mentioned earlier, it's going to be looked at by the Visioning and Building Committee, and to see for any type of consolidation of buildings with little or no construction. And that's something in the future, and that would be considered under that committee. So I think that's the slide he's referring to.
Mhm. TG made the comment, keep in mind upfront costs are understood. Failure to recognize life cycle recurring, failing to recognize life cycle recurring cost and delaying decisions just results in increased cost and maintenance. We are so aware of that. When we defer maintenance, just adds costs in the future. It's very frustrating that Vermont used to have a program where the state would help districts in construction of new buildings, and I believe in maintenance, I'm not sure. And that program disappeared in the 2008 financial crisis. Apparently, it disappeared in many states, and it's back in most states, but not Vermont.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but much of our deferred maintenance also goes to simple budgetary restrictions that end up coming up throughout the year, correct? We only have so much in our reserves that we have to go towards that.
Yeah, I mean, Lisa's the master of numbers.
Yes, that is true. There's a lot of things that have to go towards our maintenance and budget out of our maintenance reserve.
Let me get to a question from Beth Gravel. What's the board doing to communicate to the public what sacrifices have already been made in our district to our community? And examples include cuts in programmings and course offerings, class size increases. I mean, that's the job of the outreach committee of the school board. And what we try to do is keep articles in the Waterbury Roundabout and Valley Reporter, post on Front Porch Forum. That's the ways we need to communicate. We know to communicate to the public. I think we could be doing more. And you're right, we should emphasize not just how much the budget is going up by, but also, paradoxically, while the budget goes up, we've made cuts in programming, and I think we've hurt the education of our students. We should get that across better.
And Steve, I just want to emphasize that's also listed in all of most of my presentations. Previous cuts and reductions over the last 2 years was in presentation number 3. And that was over $6.5 million in reductions over the last 2 years. And then in presentation 4 and tonight's presentation also lists everything that we're projecting to cut for the next fiscal year.
Yeah, so I read that as $7.5 million in cuts over the last 3 years. It's a big chunk.
And it's honestly a balance too. We have good programming, and I hear from parents who are in the district that they moved here because of the quality of schools. So if you, at a time when we're having a declining enrollment, unless there's a comprehensive policy coming from the state, which has been one of my criticisms, that we are not seeing a comprehensive policy coming from Montpelier that looks at not only housing costs and rising healthcare, we are in all areas, all sectors, we have the highest healthcare costs in the nation. Unless we tackle areas like that by significant reductions in schools, we're going to drive young families away because they're going to choose to go to other places rather than come to a state that has been known for quality schools and still is. So it's a tough balancing act, and we are all in a very tough situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have time for a couple more. I'm going to go back to a comment from Steve Martin. I didn't get to.
I see the one about the child care tax, Steve. Is that the one you were thinking of?
That's the one. Yep. Does HUUSD still pay all of the 0.44% payroll tax for childcare expense, or has the allowable 0.11% been shifted to employees? If not, why? I will let someone answer that who understands it.
So I can answer that. So
Good.
currently the district does pay that. We are looking at, it has to be included in negotiations for it to be then passed on. So that's something we're looking at. But right now, currently the district pays all of it. For the district, it would be 1/3 to pass on that cost, which would be about $30,000.
And that was a result of some work as the legislature has been looking to expand access to pre-kindergarten and childcare. They passed a childcare tax that helps offset that for families, providers. But I do think it's important we have a very robust pre-kindergarten program. We have maintained that. That is not a requirement that the board has it. It is a requirement that the board act as a fiduciary agent for a guaranteed minimum number of hours for pre-kindergarten. But that was another example of an unfunded mandate that was passed by the legislature, and it's a requirement and is borne by the local taxpayers for those programs. We think it's quality. Our board has traditionally wanted to support that, but it is an example of an area that was passed without funds to local schools and has been passed to taxpayers.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, a couple of other comments. TG and Steve Martin. So TG says, look at the 2020 budget. I believe it was 39 million. Could be off. Now it's 51 million. Previous meetings, you've talked about ratios per school, student facing. Can you provide these figures? I would encourage you to drive unfunded mandates out of the discussion by advocating their removal and more flexibility at the local level. If only we could get rid of unfunded mandates or turn them into funded mandates. I mean, that's the situation we're in. We're told we must cover certain costs, and these costs are not coming from the feds or the state. Anybody else want to also vent on this issue? Okay, and let's see. Steve says the state has no money without raising other taxes. The federal government is 38 trillion in debt. I've shared elsewhere that 38 trillion is a stack of $100 bills over 25,000 miles high. Citizens are overtaxed and Vermont is already acknowledged as unaffordable. Do any board members believe perhaps we are currently overspending and will be forced to scale back? I mean, we are being forced to scale back. That's not a belief. That's our reality.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we are scaling back. We don't have a choice. We've cut 55 jobs in 3 years. We have way less student facing people. We have way less staff than we actually could optimize. So we are already cutting back, and it seems like from what we know is going on at the state level, which isn't it's a struggle, and it's not going to get any easier for us. We definitely know that there's a real itch to reduce costs, and it will continue to happen. So that's a fact.
Steve says respectfully, an increase twice the rate of inflation is not scaling back to me. I mean, I just think you have to understand that our increases still involve cutting services, and these increases are forced on us by, these double-digit increases in health insurance, transportation costs, special ed costs, things like that.
Right. We have to cancel jobs because those things are so much more expensive. When what it takes to run the school is more than what we have already. And we've already done that cutting. I know it doesn't feel like that. It's a puzzle that isn't making sense.
And maybe I have a final comment from TG, and then I have a question for the panelists. TG says, I would like to adamantly state no one wants to reduce quality of education. Consider affordability issues that transcend generations. Hard to explain to a senior watching all this, a 12th grader, and a senior 64 years old, that staying in Vermont makes sense if year-to-year budgets go up 2 million. Saying 66% subsidized is not a good news story, just a recommendation. I know you're in a tough spot and appreciate the time and commitment you all make. Thank you for your service and offering a forum for consideration. And I would like to say thank you for your comments and your good questions. Bobby?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, that all of the things we've talked about, healthcare, transportation, housing, these are all topics being taken up at the State House right now. Candace White, our representative in Waitsfield, and is on a committee to study transportation solutions. I think they're struggling with this at the state level, but I do agree. I don't know who said it. I mean, yes, we're doing our best to try to consolidate costs and use our buildings efficiently. These are the things that we've undertaken to look at, but the larger problems, the overreaching problems, are things that are being addressed right now at the State House. And when asked, both Dara and Candace said, continue to contact your legislator, let them know how you're feeling about things. We all need to do our share to just let people know how we're feeling as citizens, and what kinds of solutions we might be able to come up with. So that's all I can say, is continue to contact and stay informed, and let Dara and Candace and Tom Stevens has come and spoken to us, Teresa Wood. These are all people that you need to stay in touch with.
A final comment from Noel Bailey. I want to read. He says, thanks for all you're doing. So much that's out of your control, and our ability to change things through cutting teachers isn't the way. Couldn't agree more. I think we're good. I don't see more questions coming in. I'd like to thank all the board members who showed up. I appreciate it very much. And I would like to thank everybody who attended and asked questions. And feel free to say whether you like this format or don't like this format. I think it kept things moving along. I kind of like it, but maybe you feel differently.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear that. I'm interested to hear the feedback about this. I kind of liked it because it gave us a chance to read it and understand the question a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, before we talked about it. Thank you, everyone. I also want to thank everyone. This is a pretty good turnout, actually. It's certainly a really good turnout of board members.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
Yep.
And I see just before we shut down, I see at least one comment about the format. Just wanted to see if anyone else had some comments to put on here.
Right. Beth says the guests couldn't read the chats as they came in. She could only see her own chats, and apparently that's a Zoom feature in this format.
Rob Perry says he likes it, and that's nice. He had several questions and he took advantage of this format.
Yeah. All right. Well,
up about 5.
It's pros and cons.
And we can save the chat, so that's something we'll definitely do as well.
Right. Right. Okay, I guess that will do it. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to board members, other panelists, and thanks to everybody who attended and asked good questions, keeping us on our toes.
And thank you to Steve for moderating.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Good
Yeah,
job.
thanks, Steve. You did a great job.
Thanks. Thank you. You're welcome.
Oh,
All right. Okay. End of Love Fest. Good night, everybody.
take care, everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.